One human warship cuts its way through the star lanes, an unstoppable force. Sensors across the galaxy spike in alarm. Factions freeze, fearing its unstoppable advances. This is more than just a vessel. It's a menace to every known potency, a harbinger of uncontainable wrath. The time bomb starts ticking. Prepare. Destiny. Across the cosmos, leaders quaked at the sudden news. A human ship of war had materialized, cleaving through defenses as a blade cuts paper. There was shock across countless star systems. For centuries, alien coalitions asserted total supremacy, stunting human growth behind close locks. Yet now, this single craft strode beyond the front lines without a care, flitting over every limit that once corralled humanity's ambition. High command posts across the most powerful empires were bombarded with reports confirming the impossible with each new dispatch. How did this warship get past border stations without alarm? How was no patrol able to detect it until it was well into dense patrol space? Speculation soared. Maybe mankind had learned about stealth technologies said to have been centuries ahead of it. Some speculated about hidden coalitions or age-old relics refabricated into terrifying energy cores. Frantic debates, meanwhile, broke out in alien council chambers. Advisors combed through patchy sensor logs, each readout increasingly alarming. One log had the warship's energy output dwarfing entire flotillas. Another showed strange changes that suggested highly sophisticated shield modulators. For military strategists, the prospect was chilling. Their current fleets could be powerless. The idea that humans, once a loser species, had developed a tool of war so monstrous shook all assumptions. As the warship's whereabouts remained unclear, panic seized strategic outposts. Commanders evoked past human wars, petty skirmishes in which humans demonstrated unearthly perseverance. But those skirmishes were petty. Alien powers thought they'd experienced the full array of Earth's means. Then, that confidence fell apart. The warship's arrival overturned the notion that humans were manageable. Some empires sent vanguard cruisers pursuing phantoms, insisting that the craft could make it into the heart of their core systems unspotted. Others remembered talk of some human superweapon in development that once seemed absurd and now seemed terrifyingly plausible. Representatives of species-hardened diplomats from other worlds called urgently for clarification with Earth, but official channels yielded only silence. Humanity, it appeared, had no ready explanation for this brazen breach. In whispered corners, bloody factions quaked. They depended for protection on the fleets of the major powers. And should those fleets prove impotent, entire conquered worlds could see consequences that beggar the imagination. Colonies in rebellion against foreign domination had cause to hope. If the warship might outrun implacable fleets, perhaps it heralded an age of emancipation. But no one could tell whether this new force was fighting for freedom or conquest. As the paranoia deepened, so did the demands for a united defense. Rivals for a long time attempted to join forces, all wanting to exchange intelligence and strengthen vulnerabilities. Yet old mistrust lingered. Some feared that an active empire had quietly conspired with humans to destabilize the equilibrium. Behind closed doors, the accusations flew, creating even more division. What was certain was a single warship had thrown the galaxy into chaos. Every star lane thickened with warships as tensions rose. Generals shouted to harried engineers to retrofit older vessels in the vain hope they might buy time if that unstoppable craft attacked. Merchant guilds redirected supply lines, expecting fresh blockades or surprise raids. An eerie quiet descended on commoners who discerned by rumor alone that something unstoppable prowled. Smaller scouting units took turns trying to find the warship's track. They all made empty returns, or not at all there. Some scout reports detected intermittent power spikes within unscouted systems, but by the time a military response could be mounted, no signs remained. It is as if the human craft was moving, velu o rabia, as it wished, undetectable until it made itself known. That reality busted up any illusions of controlling the conflict. On the rare worlds on which Earth still kept microscopic embassies, local authorities wanted to know why. The human proxies provided extremely well-rehearsed responses, disclaiming knowledge. That did little to quell suspicions the warship was acting independently, or possibly on orders that were so classified not even an official would acknowledge them. Rumors spread that mankind no longer needed permission to act in the galaxy. They had constructed a doomsday craft unmatched by any empire. Within days, tension erupted to a boiling point. Conflicts within border zones erupted as empires expanded themselves in attempts to find the warship. The galaxy seemed to hang on the edge of a cataclysm. And somewhere amid it, the ship that could not be stopped sailed through dark star lanes, on a mission whose details no stranger truly comprehended. Each branch steeled itself for a blow that could alter the universe. Because if the rumors were true, that the warship was unstoppable, the galaxy might not live through what came next. Far below deck in the warship's command deck, a sense of purpose burned bright among the crew. They knew that their mission was more than just bravado. The Earth's last gasps had gone towards building a craft of unprecedented potential. After generations of subjugation, this final play had risen, a representation of human resilience, forged into metal and heat. To outside eyes, the warship was an executioner haunting the stars. But within its corridors, every system throbbed with the memory of Earth's privations. Each one carried the hopes of billions of families under the threat of alien tyranny. Each one a testament to brilliant minds who would not let their homeworld burn in obsolescence. The crew's togetherness spoke to a solemn oath. They would change the course of the galaxy or be lost trying. Inside the engine core, engineers monitored the specialized reactors that were said to unleash unparalleled bursts of energy. Rumor had it that they warped the gravitational waves, slipping past scanned regions undetected. In weapon bays, advanced rail cannons loaded tungsten slugs that could cripple dreadnoughts in a single response. Defensive modules spun up shields that tailored to the next threat. The full complement suggested that ordinary alien defenses were useless. Still, the crew was humble in their duty. They never underestimated the galactic powers that had kept humanity pinned down for generations. They understood that the price of confrontation could be staggering. In fact, communications from home reminded them constantly that Earth's future depended on their victory. If the warship succeeded, all of humanity's last shreds of autonomy would be ground into the dust of revenge. This was no simple incursion. It was an existential gamble. Rumors circulated among the crew as to his true intentions. Some argued that they were on their way to deliver an ultimatum to the alien council: get out of human space or face retaliation that couldn't be stopped. Others speculated it was an infiltration mission to penetrate key strongholds of the Israeli military. Some skeptics worried that Earth had made a last stand using a doomsday weapon that would encompass the entire region. None knew for certain. They followed only orders laid down by Earth's highest command, confident that their cause was just. Dread set in as they approached the hubs of travel. Alien fleet scouts lurked at a distance, searching for hints of the warship's coordinates. In every instance, the craft's devious stealth systems triumphed, leaving observers perplexed. On the bridge, tension mounted, awaiting the moment they'd have to uncloak and let the full force of humanity's retribution wash over the alien fleet. Elsewhere in quiet corners, the crew wrestled with moral weight. They remembered the Empire's violent subjugation of human colonies, slave labor, and cruel taxes that drained the resources of Earth. To them, the warship's prowess was not a road to conquest, but a desperation tactic to disrupt the cycle of domination. If that involved the mass overthrow of fleets or the threat of entire sectors, so be it. The era of meek survival was long over. As final checks were completed, the warship's primary cannons went online. Crew members strapped into their stations, eyes grim, hearts steeled. Every console hummed with energy. Every readout glowed a dire red. Outside, alien armadas scrambled to rearrange themselves, constructing immense blockades that may, or may not, arrest the advance that could not be stopped. The warship's sensors tracked hundreds of potential encounters, each one ending in deadly confrontation. Hanging on the edge, the warship floated at the entryway to the Empire's greatest bastions. All over the galaxy, watchers held their breath. There was no doubt that cataclysm awaited. But behind that fortress of steel, the crew found their resolve with one last pledge. They would not shy away from their responsibility. If the galaxy wasn't going to respond to peaceful appeals, Then the last hope of Earth itself would show that a cornered species could unleash unstoppable fury. The stage was set. The weapons, glowing, humanity's warship lumbering forward with unflinching attention. An alien sensor spied a huge energy surge on the edge of the Empire's prime security zone. Alarms howled within capital ships and fortress stations. Armadas turned in unison, angling into formation. From heights atop great citadels, admirals looked out at the inexorable sight coming into view. Tension crackled. This was it, the first unclassified contact with humanity's rumored doomsday craft. The Empire's front line pushed ahead. 1,000 starfighters shot from it in an elaborate net. Insisted upon by heavier cruisers sporting plasma siege cannons, all gaps were filled. Commanders believed that they could corner the warship with overwhelming numbers, but they had no idea how quickly it could come. In a rage of speed, the human craft filtered through starfighter lines, its shields absorbing stray hits. Return fire from rail cannons sliced whole squadrons in half before they could reform. Panic spread along alien channels as each attempt to synchronize missile salvos failed. The warship's electronic warfare suite jammed targeting systems, forcing those trying to defend the warship to guess. Crisp beams, which might have kept it fixed in place, shot wildly into the void. The unstoppable craft, however, closed with terrifying speed. Smaller frigates dispersed, unwilling to bar its way. In minutes, several cruisers lay crippled, with broken hulls drifting. Pawing teeth clawed for backup, barking alien admirals. Titan-class dreadnoughts charged from behind fortress walls, sweeping broadside lasers strong enough to melt city-sized asteroids. Finally, one of the volleys slammed straight against the warship's shield, flaring the protective barrier with an eye-searing glare. For a moment, the invulnerable appeared pinned by brute firepower. Tugboats across the Empire held their breath. If anything could stop the warship, it was these dreadnought cannons. But the shield flicker died down, settling under the craft's advanced power distribution. The warship climbed, firing back a volley of kinetic slugs that found purchase on a dreadnought's armor. One slug bored straight through the vessel's core, causing catastrophic meltdown. Nearby ships were shaken by shockwaves. The carnage left onlookers gasping. No regular ship had dealt so much damage to a dreadnought so quickly. Alien morale fractured. Some wingmen fled the ranges, paralyzed by fear. Others, faithful to the Empire's iron grip, continued to fight, trying desperate kamikaze runs. The warship's precision turrets tracked such suicidal craft, plucking them from the sky. In the confusion, groups of defenders knew they were facing a never-before-seen threat. In coordinating a last stand, they attempted encirclement. The relentless craft shot back with a twist of cutting-edge thrusters, bursting through the azure ring before it could congeal. Station by station throughout the sector, fortress opened fire. Enormous arrays of beams lashed out, creating a radiant web of devastation. The warship skimmed around them, at times allowing a grazing beam to race down its shield. Each time, the field glimmered but would not break. Allied observers watching from far-off perspectives understood with growing horror, conventional tactics, even at maximum scale, put virtually no brake on the warship. Another moment of recognition, the Unstoppable pointed its main energy weapon toward the largest of the fortress stations. This station was the centerpiece of the whole defense grid, directing drone swarms and automated turrets. The warship's primary cannon boomed. A focused lance of superheated plasma stabbed into the station's heart, sparking a chain detonation that vaporized power nodes. Suddenly, half the region's automated defenses seized up. Admirals swore in disbelief as their protective shells disappeared. Now the warship pressed deeper, unyielding. The alien fleets, deposed and decapitated, struggled to regroup. The star lanes were littered with wreckage. Pockets of resistance here and there mounted final salvos, but they were overcome by the Unstoppable with little effort. Red-hot rail shots rip through stragglers into nothingness, leaving only drifting hulks. The ghost of defeat hung over local communications. The Unstoppable craft pressed on, cut a path to the Empire's core systems. Across the galaxy, watchers realized the Empire's storied guardians had disintegrated in a single encounter. The balance of power, so firmly in alien hands, teetered on a knife edge. One human warship had demolished that illusion of universal dominance. Whispers began to circulate that entire clusters of stars might bow down rather than face this incomprehensible force of nature. Empire allies wrung their hands about whether they should support a striving power or hedge their bets with humanity. Continuing its unmatched charge, scanners showed it took no major injuries, only superficial burns scarring its outer plates. The Empire's proud fleets, meanwhile, reeled, their confidence shattered. Survivors described unstoppable rail slugs and stealth maneuvers that seemed to defy logic. As for the next phase, the whole area readied for whatever might come, not knowing if the unstoppable had come to conquer or destroy. Either road spelled doom, sending the galaxy over one shared epiphany. With every alien defense broken, survival itself became uncertain. Dismayed that the Empire couldn't stop the relentless warship, allied alien powers rushed to assemble. Every voice had an undercurrent of desperation. If the armadas, long praised for centuries of unchallenged power, fell apart so easily, that meant lesser coalitions would have no chance. The invincible vessel had undoubtedly demonstrated its power, but maybe there was a last resort. They referred to it as the Solar Lancer. A doomsday weapon she'd heard could harness a star's plasma output, an ultimate deterrent never yet tested in live warfare. In desperate missives, leaders of several factions called on the Empire to use this device. Some saw it as suicidal. If operated carelessly, the Solar Lancer might set entire sectors ablaze, friend and foe alike. But with unstoppable destruction threatening the galaxy, many felt they had no choice. Better a cataclysmic stand than a slow defeat. Secret enclaves sifted through ancient vaults, verifying the Lancer's activation codes. Meanwhile, smaller powers prepared to flee or bury themselves, unsure whether the Empire's last gamble would spare them or destroy them. News of this scheme rippled out, causing panic across star systems. Citizens remembered tales of weapons that swallowed whole suns. If the Lancer were real, unleashing it would annihilate billions of lives. But the inappeasable warship marched on, relentless, inexorable. For some, that overshadowed the Lancer's deployment's moral cost. If the Unstoppable encountered the Empire's capital, the whole galaxy could fall. The caretaker of the device said they had no other option. The Empire's highest-ranking admirals feuded behind closed doors. Some called for a second line of conventional defense, with the hope that what cannot be stopped will wear itself out. Others noted that the craft's advanced technology probably gave it a self-repair capability or near unlimited power. With no means to corral it, every lost minute was another fortress lost. Finally, after much reluctance, permission to arm the Lancer was granted. At the same time, secret transmissions from insurgent worlds began to emerge. They begged the warship, which couldn't be stopped, to let them live if the Empire fell. They provided clandestine intelligence, including the location of the Lancer's test site. The invincible craft, processing these suggestions, changed its course. They understood with horror it was headed straight for the star system said to hold the Lancer's activation chamber. If that device fired and the Unstoppable destroyed it, any opportunity to repel it was lost. As the dreadnought approached that star system, a pall of dread settled. The Empire funneled all the remaining ships to protect the Lancer's facility, creating a final, fearsome blockade. Included were veteran relic vessels that had long been obsolete but were now pressed into a desperate gamble. Battle-fatigued captains braced themselves, convinced they could not allow the device to fall into enemy hands. When the inevitable came, it met the largest combined fleet in the history of the galaxy. Thousands of capital ships, carriers, and fighter wings hammered out a web of defense around the star's orbit. All of them bristled with weapons, each crew keenly aware that the standard tactics had failed before. But they had their hopes pinned on the Lancer, which was still charging up inside a massive ring station close to the star's corona. If they could stall long enough, the device would unleash a solar flare so gigantic it could vaporize the unhittable. Far above the star's churning surface, the Unstoppable warship slowed and scanned the blockade. The Empire's command staff realized the decisive moment had come. Then it happened. A single dreadnought eliminated their opening salvo, and it set off the avalanche of plasma beams. The shield of the Unstoppable flared under the assault. The blockade continued, bent on not allowing the craft to get past. Their one goal: stay put until the Lancer finished charging. For a moment there, it looked like they might actually pull it off. The indomitable warship pushed forward carefully, pounded by the churning bombardment. There were glimpses of shield stress. Indeed, on the Empire's lines, a glimmer of hope illuminated. But then came the kicker. The Invincible released a never-before-seen horde of drone warriors outfitted with specialized warheads. These drones outgunned the blockade from multiple angles, crippling key arms. The blockade broke, allowing the Unstoppable to spill into the station's inner zone. Within the ring station, panicked engineers scrambled to drive the Lancer to maximum output. The star's plasma had been drawn into a containment funnel, harnessing an unrelenting building energy that would burn anything in a vast radius. Faraway allies observed the doomsday scenario unfold. If the Unstoppable warship were still within striking distance when the Lancer fired, the region would be obliterated in a superheated storm. But had the Unstoppable disabled the Lancer first, no second chance would have existed to save the galaxy from Earth's champion. Brushing aside efforts to slow its momentum, the relentless warship bore down on the ring station. Explosions swept the docking bays as last defenders made desperate stands. On station monitors, readouts indicated the Lancer only minutes from peak capacity. Each side knew this was the final crossroads. The Irresistible either broke in time or was consumed by the unleashed fury of a star. Every comm feed fell silent as the Invincible brushed aside a final dreadnought. The direct route to the ring station's heart was clear. Tense. Seconds ticked by. The Lancer's meltdown threshold was looming. Then, in a searing shot, the Invincible brought its rail cannons to bear on the station's main control tower. The hull of the fortress bent, blasting fire and pieces. The Lancer's containment field spiraled out of control, failing one after the other in a cascade that brought down the whole ring station. The star's plasma funneled home, out of an artificial channel. As the station exploded in a brilliant cascade, the Unstoppable tore free of the shockwave, bruised but triumphant. Every alien heart sank. Their final, most desperate act had failed. The warship, Unstoppable, was now unstoppable too. And in that deadly silence, the galaxy woke up to a new reality. Earth's champion had laid waste to even their final gamble. Nothing, apparently, could resist this Leviathan. With the Lancer crippled, the Empire's lines ruptured. Those who survived the blockade floated helplessly, engines dying, morale shattered. The scarred but fully operational warship inexorably pressed into Imperial territory. Consternation engulfed every major star system, from the richest capital worlds to the most obscure mining outposts. No layer of defense was able to stop a direct attack. In the Empire's central spheres, uncounted fleets gathered for their final assault. They moored close to the Imperial seat, forming one ring of warships after another. They did, however, connect to one another as planetary cannons burst from concealed silos. Gun arrays glittered across orbital platforms, each mere seconds from collision with the Unstoppable. For centuries, these bastions were considered impregnable. Now they were the last bastion of an empire that's going extinct. As the Unstoppable slipped into the grasp of the scanners, officers across the Empire braced. Alarms howled. Crews manned every turret. The overlords who were once sure of themselves were shouting orders frantically. All remaining cruisers were instructed to hold position. With enough firepower, they hoped, even the Unstoppable shield would be no match. A solemn resolve rippled through the room. This final stand was the difference between life and complete disintegration. Here came the Unstoppable, glittering out of the dark. Every Empire battery opened a frenzied fire. Missiles and beams and mass driver shells howled through space, creating a storm bright enough that whole planet-side populations awed at its glory as a second sun. Inside that inferno, the shield for the Unstoppable flared, bursts of stressed energy leaping from the hull like angry snakes. Observers dared to hope. Could this flood of power finally stop the Unstoppable? For what felt like an eternity of seconds, the warship withstood the maelstrom. Then, it responded with horrifying precision. Rail cannons hammered the leading battleships to clouds of molten slag. Entire wings of interceptors were incinerated by plasma turrets. The Implacable sped down open hallways, dodging intense fire with clever moves. The Empire's ring lines ruptured one by one. Fleets of ships that once patrolled the galaxy with incomprehensible might crumbled under the warship's unstoppable force. The unyielding targeted massive orbital forts near the core planet. Each was centuries old, seemingly invulnerable. The main beam of the warship, washing over them with superheated plasma, was setting off chain reactions in their ammo stocks. Fortress after fortress exploded, spraying the planet's stratosphere with flaming debris. Planetary cannons attempted to target, but the relentless never stopped moving, recalibrated continuously, slipping between tracking holes. Before long, those cannons became hammered by unstoppable salvos from railslug guns. With every planetary gun erased, deafening blasts reverberated across the capital city. Glimpsing the terrifying magnitude of destruction, the Empire's highest leadership indicated an unconditional surrender. They make begging calls for negotiation, promising to withdraw completely from human space. But the wayward warship kept on, ignoring calls. This was a moment beyond diplomacy. It had come for a single purpose, impervious to language. With imperiousness, it streaked toward the planet's lower orbit. Ribbons of anti-orbital beams skated along its shielding. A last surge of defenders swept upward from the planet, throwing all their weapons. The Leviathan set off an EMP ripple that fried whole swathes of missiles, rendering them fatally drifting hulk. Automated orbital stations, unshielded from such pulses, flickered and faded. Straightened of those last challenges, the impregnable homed in on the Empire's main fortress. A giant sitting in the planet's biggest city, seat of imperial power for centuries. Every major weapon on the warship fired in a single coordinated high-speed strike. The Citadel screens, strong enough to withstand a planetary bombardment, failed in seconds as a rail slug penetrated. The Unrelenting followed with a tight beam, igniting the Citadel's central power reactors. In a roar heard across continents, a chain reaction of unstoppable force consumed the entire structure, collapsing it. Billions looked on in speechless horror, watching as the emblem of Empire disintegrated in columns of flame. That blow shattered the Empire's command hierarchy. They also signaled mass surrender by surviving admirals. Nobles fleeing on concealed shuttles, edge into far-flung star sectors. The Invincible flew over, its outline crowned with the flickering fires of the city. No more threats remained. The Empire had collapsed, defeated by one human warship. Shock rippled through the galactic network. One warship had brought catastrophic ruin, toppling the Empire in less than a week. Far-distant star clusters witnessed the death blow in real-time feeds, hearts thumping at the blistering acceleration. Now it was the galaxy that tilted on the edge of total collapse. If liberated from their overlords, some worlds could descend into anarchy. Others would seek new alliances. But looming over all was the indomitable figure of humanity's champion, unchallenged, unbroken. All was silence across the fallen Empire's core world. Its capital was reduced to smoldering ruins, clouds of dust wafting across boulevards once filled with glory. Wreckage from orbital stations threw preposterous shadows across the planetary surface, hewn through, and still glowing from, the unstoppable warship's last blows. Survivors walked through streets strewn with twisted metal, not knowing what would happen next. Their rulers were gone, toppled in an attack no one imagined possible. Shockwaves emanating from this event traveled to every corner of the galaxy. Civilizations that once trembled beneath the Empire's power reacted in disbelief at the news. Some exulted, seeing in the unstoppable warship's triumph an opportunity to assert independence. Others dreaded the force that had unmade the Empire. If a single human craft could bring a great overlord to its knees, then no citadel was truly safe. The panic blended with hope ignited a frantic scramble for alliances. Cautious celebrations erupted on Earth and its scattered colonies. Peoples who had suffered centuries of alien rule saw a glimmer of their liberation. But joy was tempered by the awareness large swathes of destruction had been unleashed. The unfurled rampage of the unstoppable warship left billions mourning. Controversy followed. Had mankind gone too far in unchaining an unstoppable power? What else could be done under constant oppression? The moral toll loomed in many hearts. In remote star lanes, and smaller factions reconsidered their alliances. If Earth had technology aliens could not resist, treaties might lead to protection or trade benefits. Rival powers, having been overshadowed by the Empire, perceived chances to expand or cement territories. Meanwhile, the invincible warship itself disappeared from public radar. Rumors said it came back to Earth to make repairs or patrolled frontiers to dissuade opportunists. No official statements explained where it was. For the Empire's scattered remnants, the outlook was grim. Warlords rose up, each staking a claim to pieces of imperial power. Others called for revenge, pledging to rebuild fleets to compete with the invincible warship. Others entered silent exile, convinced that resisting such irresistible power was suicidal. The Empire's unity, painstakingly held together for generations, was in shreds. Whole star systems declared independence, creating power vacuums that exacerbated instability. Through the upheaval, a new narrative emerged. Earth was invincible, a force no empire could domesticate. Refugees from the ruined capital told how the unstoppable craft had delivered its final blow, describing it as a cosmic reaper against which no shield could hold. Diplomats rushed to adjust to this new reality. Many nation-states wanted to negotiate with Earth. They wanted to avoid a similar fate. But even Earth's leadership struggled with what to do next. Should they bring order or allow the galaxy to find its own way? Grief and relief mingled. In some newly liberated worlds, citizens ripped down statues of the Empire, replaced them with memorials to those who fell to the unstoppable tide. Others angrily blamed humanity for the same carnage that took innocent lives. The uncontainable juggernaut had smashed oppression but also dealt destruction well beyond one empire's capital. The divide between just retaliation and monstrous force blurred, and moral questions remained that a simple answer could not mend. Across the interstellar capitals that were the old empires beyond, shock reigned. The warlords' allies fell back behind closed borders, fearing the 1 in 9 would be coming for them next. Some engaged in low-level espionage, trying to reverse engineer whatever powered that warship. At least some rumors spoke of advanced graviton reactors or reverse-engineered alien relics seized and utilized by Earth scientists. Even if that were true, building another would take decades, time the galaxy feared it didn't have. The galaxy was at an uncertain crossroads. The Invincible had proved that even the greatest empire could collapse in days. Worry that used to temper wayward ambitions had changed hands. Now that mantle of unstoppable might belong to humankind. Far-off warlords wondered whether another warship they couldn't stop might emerge, rewriting the cosmic balance yet again. For many, the threat of unstoppable force trumped ancient vendettas, molding a new order shaped by awe and dread. And so as dust settled over the Empire's last battlefield, there were left hollow shells of once proud fleets, shattered citadels, and shattered civilization. Away from that devastation, the Unstoppable's legacy settled in. This galaxy might never recover from the display of raw might. As rumors of next war flickered among the undeterred dominators, one grim fact loomed. If that invincible warship, or others of its ilk, came back to complete the destruction, the universe would be engulfed in an even more savage tempest, and perhaps nothing would survive.